Thank you for your patience while everybody joins the call. All right, let's get going. I would like to call to order the October 28th, 2020 Governing Board of Trustees regular meeting at 4:30 p.m., right on time. By law and board policy, I must notify you that this meeting is being recorded. The Governor of California has declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. The Governor issued Executive Order N-2520, which directs Californians to follow public health directives, including canceling large gatherings. The Executive Order also allows local legislative bodies to hold meetings via conference and video calls while still satisfying state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are the top priority for the Del Mar Union School District Governing Board of Trustees, and you are urged to take all appropriate health and safety precautions. To facilitate this process, the meeting of the Governing Board has been made available on the district's website. Members of the public who would like to address the Governing Board regarding an item on the agenda must go to the link provided at the online agenda. The link can be found on the front page of the agenda, item 1.3 to be heard regarding a closed session agenda item, and 4.2 to be heard regarding an item not on the agenda, or item 5.7 to be heard regarding an item that is on the agenda. Complete and submit the online request to provide public input form at the link provided. Once you have submitted the form, please click on the raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if calling in, dial *9 to raise your hand. This will let the meeting moderator know that you have submitted a speaker form and would like to address the board. Please do not click the raise hand button option unless you plan to address the board and have completed the request form. If you are unable to access the form, please email Megan Bennett at mbennett@dmusd.org. 2 N's, 2 T's. Item 1.2 is roll call. I will now take a roll call of board members who are present at this meeting. Member Wooden.
Present.
Member Mock.
Present.
Member Fitzpatrick.
Present.
Member Raffner.
I'm here.
And I am present. All governing board members are present. Item 1.3 is public input concerning items on the closed session agenda. And there are none. Item 1.4 is adjournment into closed session. The governing board will adjourn into closed session. The items to be discussed will be 2.1, settlement agreement in OAH case number 202-0080390. 2.2, settlement agreement in OAH case number 202-0050243. 2.3, conference with legal counsel existing litigation. 2.4, conference with legal counsel pending litigation. The Zoom meeting will remain open. The board will reconvene and rejoin this meeting, rejoin this open session when closed session is adjourned at approximately 5:45 p.m. I will see you in closed session. Hello, everybody. We're waiting for everyone to join. Okay. Great. Okay, we are at item 3.1, call to order and reconvene open session at 6:06 p.m. Open session is reconvened at 6:06 p.m. Item 3.2 is report of action taken in closed session. The governing board met in closed session, and I would like to report the following action taken. In a unanimous vote, the board voted to approve a compromise agreement and release in OAH case number 202-0080390. The agreement includes funds for special education services in exchange for a waiver of claims against the district. Similarly, in a unanimous vote, the board voted to approve a compromise agreement and release in OAH case number 202-0050243. The agreement includes funds for special education services in exchange for a waiver of claims against the district. No other action was taken. Item 3.3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Holly, will you please lead us in the remote Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we are at item 3.4, approval of the agenda. There is a redundant item. It is 6.5, which is a duplicate of item 6.2. So all of the attachments for the item are included in 6.2. So we need a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of redundant item 6.5. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Member Wooden.
Aye.
Member Mock.
Aye.
Member Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Member Raffner.
Aye.
Aye for me. The motion to approve the agenda has passed. Item 4.1, correspondence. Dr. McClurk.
Good evening again. The Superintendent's Office has received the following correspondence throughout the previous month. Several inquiries regarding launch for the 2020-2021 school year. A couple inquiries regarding the Delmar Heights rebuild. Several regarding the ECDC restructuring. Several regarding DMUSD COVID-19 tracking and the dashboard. Several regarding emails of gratitude to DMUSD for opening schools. One regarding the Sage Canyon playground hours, and two regarding board meeting agendas specific to the Brown Act. And that concludes our correspondence received throughout the past month.
Okay, thank you. We are now on item 4.2, which is hearing with the public regarding non-agenda items. Members of the public who would like to address the governing board need to have filled out a form on the website. We have 6 speakers, and if anyone has trouble filling out the form, please email mbennett@dmusd.org to N's, 2 T's. The board values the high level of engagement from the community. We welcome public input. We want to get the best decisions on behalf of children in our district, and we encourage civility in all of your comments. With that, I'm going to call in Adriana Bade, and followed by Amanda Haas. Adriana, you're in the call, and you're still muted. So if you unmute, there you go. All set. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'd like to know you did it with my cell phone.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Imagine the excitement in your voice when you tell your family that you're going to Cabo for Thanksgiving with grandma and another family from school. You've got your entire itinerary planned. Flights and a rental property are booked. Yet 2 days later, you receive an email from Sage Canyon announcing a new travel policy. It's hidden with the DMSEF fundraising, Halloween costume protocol, and lo and behold, Article 5141.22, stating any student that has traveled outside the United States during the COVID-19 pandemic will be required to quarantine for 14 days prior to returning to school. Now you're scrambling trying to get refunds and void contracts, and the district conveniently isn't returning or answering your emails. I'd like to address the inconsistencies in the rules that the district has set forth. First, you can travel domestically and go back to school the minute you get off of a plane, when in fact some international destinations are much more safe than domestic travel. In fact, we have countries that are banning us from entering. The U.S. reported 74,000 cases today. Texas is up 40% with 7,000 cases. The Midwest has become a hotspot, with Minnesota reporting 2,100, California 4,900, and New York almost 2,000. During that same time period, Bahamas saw 56 cases. The country of Belize posted 39. In fact, the entire Baja California has seen only 1,100 cases in the past 14 days, with San Diego County at 4,195. Second, an even bigger inconsistency is if you have a child in a quarantine class, their siblings can go to school and avoid the 14-day quarantine. Furthermore, according to the district's policy, your child could be sick and go back to school with a negative PCR test and 72 hours after symptoms have resolved. Third, we willingly let families do whatever they want in their private time. Children can go to birthday parties, large gatherings, playgroups, sports, etc., and none of this is policed. Families can travel wherever they want domestically, even if it's a hot spot like Texas or Wisconsin. However, if people get on a plane to see their family internationally, we are policing them. They faced a 14-day mandatory quarantine from school simply because they stepped foot on a plane with no middle seat or never wearing a mask. Where is the consistency within our policies? The chances of catching COVID on a plane are relatively slim. In March, 328 passengers and crew members were tested after 12 passengers were symptomatic on a flight from the U.S. to Taiwan. Everyone tested negative. Modern aircrafts are pumped with fresh air every 2 to 3 minutes, and most planes are designed with air filters that will trap 99.97% of particles. The CDC has not confirmed any cases of transmissions aboard a U.S. airline, and Harvard came out with a study this week that said COVID-19's risk on transmission on planes reduced to very low levels. A statistics professor at MIT quantified the odds of getting infected with COVID on a flight, assuming everyone's wearing a mask, is 1 out of 4,300, and if the middle seats are vacant, 1 out of 7,770. I'm asking for the travel policy to be revisited and made less stringent, instead of essentially banning international travel for the remainder of the school year.
You have 15 seconds to conclude.
And families should have options. Perhaps providing a negative PCR prior to returning to school, but we need to remember our basic rights instead of imposing a lockdown on international travel for families.
Okay, thank you for those comments. We have Mandy Haas next, followed by Nicole Ortega. And Mandy, you're on the call. You're just muted, so you have to unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Mandy Haas. I was hired as a new integration specialist at Torrey Hills the day before the school year began. This was a newly created position, part of the District Design 2022, which I believe is being funded through the Del Mar Education Foundation. I am here tonight to let you know what has transpired with this position. I was informed on Friday, October 9th by Principal Abby Domingo that I was being released from my temporary contract because the district was, quote, moving in a different direction, unquote. I am here to explain to you why it is not in the best interest of the district and to ask the board to consider finding a suitable position that would allow me to continue the critically important work that I was tasked to do. It's my understanding that the elimination of my position may be on tonight's consent agenda. I urge you to defer the vote until you've had the opportunity to speak with me further. I am a graduate of UCLA with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in technology-based education. Before moving to San Diego, I spent 15 years teaching at a high-performing parent participation school in the Palos Verdes Unified School District, similar to Del Mar in many ways. Throughout my tenure, I was a well-respected teacher and served on various district committees. I was a lead teacher chosen to pilot new curriculum. I had excellent rapport with colleagues as well as my students' parents who worked in my class on a daily basis. I received no disciplinary or corrective measures with any of the 4 principals I served during that period. I have stellar letters of recommendation from all of them. I was hired in Del Mar to help redesign instruction for all students, grades K through 6th. I was told that my position would be evolving and that I needed to be flexible, and it would take several years to develop units of study that would be taught to students across the district. From what I understood, I would be collaborating on a regular basis with the specialists from other sites, and we would be developing new units together as a committee. Also, I needed to collaborate with classroom teachers and find ways to support them with project-based learning opportunities and design thinking units. This position was a culmination of much of my work to date and seemed like a dream job. From the beginning, the new position was fraught with challenges. I did not receive a district computer until 1 month into the job. This resulted in limited access to previously designed units and other key instructional materials. Also, I was tasked by the principal with an hour and a half of daily student supervision duties, including before and after school in the parking lot, and an hour at lunch. While I did this without complaint, it prevented me from collaborating with other teachers during the best opportunities to do so. Despite a clear job description, it seemed like the principal was trying to figure out what to do with me. Of course,
Thank you. You have 15 seconds to conclude.
Of course, I was shocked to be released from my contract in this manner after such a brief period of time, especially because it was ill-defined and was filled with unrealistic requests. Before allowing my position to be eliminated, I urge you to reach out to me to get more complete understanding of the situation. There is still important work to be done, and I'm ready to pick up where I left off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Nicole Ortega, followed by Concordia Chen. So the person on the phone, which may be Nicole, is muted. There you go. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes. Hi. I'm sorry. I'm Matt, so I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
We can. Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. So I am both a parent and a teacher in the district, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of the Early Childhood Development Center in Del Mar. My oldest son, who is now in first grade out of school, went there, and my youngest, who is 4, is now and been there since he's 6 months old. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to have amazing teachers at the ECDC, and we're really looking forward to Emilio, my youngest, finishing up at the ECDC. I understand the district's in a situation where they're deficit spending, and they're in a situation where they need to make decisions to keep the ECDC running, and I completely understand that and that difficult position that puts the district in. My only concern as a parent is the lack of transparency, as well as the district including parents in this decision or having meetings discussing it to see if we could come up with solutions together as a community to really help support our children and also to help support the program. That's been amazing throughout the years. As a parent, it's hard for me to see some of the changes because having a 4-year-old and a 2 to 5-year-old classroom is a little concerning at how that's going to work to keep the integrity of the amazing program of the ECDC. So I'm just hoping that that's something that can be open more to the district about having a discussion. And I know this was voted on last week at the board meeting, or the last board meeting, but I'm really hoping that there's other opportunities to look this over again and to maybe think of other possible solutions. As my concern that many of the families may possibly be leaving because of the changes. And so I know there's that concern about the budget and it being closed down if those changes aren't made, but I'm also concerned that it might have to be closed down if the changes are made as well. So that's really all I have to say, and thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you. We have Concordia Chen, followed by Samuel Arias. Go ahead, Concordia.
Alrighty. Hi, my name's Concordia Chen, and I'm also speaking today regarding the restructuring of the ECDC that was announced at that last meeting. I personally am a proud graduate of the school district, and my daughter is currently in her 3rd year at the ECDC. We have absolutely loved this program so far. I still remember the first time when I came in for a tour. I could tell it was a special place. All of the teachers we have had have been warm and absolutely wonderful. The friendships that both my daughter and I have made while in the program have enriched our lives greatly. My daughter has grown so much academically and socially and has really thrived. I feel that part of that success is attributed to her being in a classroom of her peers, where instruction is tailored to a specific age group. I have several concerns with the current restructuring plan, but my biggest short-term concern is that my 5-year-old will be in a class with a 2-year-old who is just beginning to understand the structure of a classroom. I don't claim to be an early childhood educator by any means, but I can only imagine the strain that this will have on students and teachers alike. One of the gifts that these early childhood educators have is being able to communicate with their students appropriately. You all have children. You know that a 2-year-old sometimes needs to hear a slightly different message than a 5-year-old to get to the same outcome. Will my 5-year-old now be spoken to as a 2-year-old? The teachers will have to context switch depending on who they are working with at certain times during the day. Will my child have to wait around quietly at circle time for a 2-year-old who won't sit still and throws a tantrum in the corner? Or will my daughter have to help the younger children with potty time? We're curious as to how the 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds will work together in the classroom and through rotation stations. This is one of my daughter's favorite times of the school day, and now smaller items used at the stations will be choking hazard for the little ones. The focus of the ECDC, as I believe, is the educational development of these early learners, and I just don't see how my child will be set up for success for kindergarten next year with these changes. These are key developmental years for my daughter, and I want to make sure that she can stretch and achieve all that she can. And this is why I've chosen to enroll her here at an early childhood development center and not a daycare. I do understand that these cuts are purely financial, but I just wish that we, your stakeholders, had known about the situation earlier so we could provide input. And I know that the ECDC teachers will do the best with what they're dealt. I would just like to request that the board revisit this issue at the next board meeting and open this discussion up for further comment and input from the community. The community is here and happy and willing to help. I would love to fully support the ECDC, but if the board and administration choose to ignore my concerns, I'll have to consider enrolling my child elsewhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Were we able to get Samuel into the call? Okay, I see somebody in here, and after Samuel is going to be Cherie Bray as our last speaker. So I think it looks like Samuel, you may be in the call. Is that you? Go ahead.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, is this Samuel?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Dear DMUSD Board of Trustees and Superintendent, hello, my name is Samuel. I am a 10-year-old student. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comments today. I believe I have a responsibility to denounce injustice and when something is wrong. First, your website still requires 4 steps to find the board agenda. So I believe DMUSD is out of compliance of the Brown Act. Website must have one click button to the board agenda. Second item, 6.2. Your contract list does not specify how much money is going to be spent for each of the law firms you have listed. So you are just giving them a blank check to the firms. I even know that is not a good idea. Board members must be able to know how much money you can spend with each vendor. I understand your legal agreement ended on June 30th, 2020. So why did the board approve POs during the period beyond June without a board-approved agreement in place? Please understand that districts are in place to look after children. Some of the legal firms you have in their contract list are notorious for litigating against special needs children like me. Please do not provide blank checks to law firms so they can litigate against children. Find me on Facebook at YouTube Movement. Every student successful. More education, less litigation. Special education, children matter. Thank you very much, Samuel B. Arias.
Samuel, thank you for speaking. We next have Cherie Bray, and you're in the call, but you need to unmute. Cherie, you're muted still.
I can.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, good.
Hi, my name is Cherie Bray, and I have been enrolled, I've had my children enrolled at the ECDC for 5 years now. So I've seen a lot of changes throughout the ECDC over the years. My oldest is now a first grader at Ashley Falls. I've had the pleasure of working with multiple teachers and have been very happy with the experiences that my children have had. On October 8th, all the parents at ECDC were abruptly emailed that these changes were going to take place effective January 4th of 2021. It has been both mine and a lot of parents surprised that these changes were brought on, especially with no parent involvement or feedback, because there's going to be two different types of classrooms. There's going to be a classroom enrolled with 6-week-old to 2-year-olds, and then 2-year-olds to 5-year-olds. Right now, each age group is broken down according to the year of that age. As you can imagine, there's a lot of leap and bounds that happen between the ages of 1 and 2, the ages of 2 and 3, when potty training is very essential. I have a almost 2-year-old at the ECDC right now, and he's full-time in diapers. And I also have a 4-year-old at ECDC right now as well, and he's learning how to write his name and spell words. I've had my oldest go through the pre-K class there, and he learned how to get ready for kindergarten. So the differences that happen at each age level are critical. So my biggest concern is the joining of these age groups. And as I understand that the administrative cuts have been decided on, I'm requesting that the board consider this restructure as something that needs to be revisited. It's important to a lot of us that the integrity of this restructure be revisited, because we want our children's basic learning needs per age group to be kept intact. I also wanted to address that, let me get to this, that the administrative plan has not been very well thought out. The current plan seems to be premised on the current attendance levels, keeping it steady, but it's likely that these attendance levels will drop. Already about 25% of the current families enrolled have directly expressed interest to the board with serious concerns about this restructuring, assuming that the entire community of ECDC and the current plan.
You have 15 seconds to conclude.
This could potentially be a death spiral for the ECDC by moving forward with these restructuring plans. So I respectfully request that the board revisit the issue with the ECDC restructuring plan. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Okay, we are now at item 5.1, which is Board Recognition DMUSD Employees of the Month. Dr. McClurg?
I am looking for my names, and I don't see them here.
Should I read them from the agenda? Because they're in the agenda.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
I have them right here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yes, from Ashley Falls. Please join me in congratulating these DMUSD Employees of the Month for the month of October. From Ashley Falls, Manny Hernandez, Custodian. Carmel Del Mar, Tracy Berger, Health Aid Tech. From Del Mar Heights, Heidi Merkel-Eckstein, Library Tech. Del Mar Hills Academy, Stelly Quinn, Office Assistant. Ocean Air School, Raquel Dixon, Health Aid Tech. Sage Canyon School, Bianca Garrow, Special Education Aide. Sycamore Ridge, Lisa House, Administrative Assistant. Torrey Hills, Dana Blue, Office Assistant. And from the District Office, Jim Ellis, IT Network Analyst. Again, these are wonderful employees who support all of the great work in our district and make all the magic happen in our classrooms. So thank you, and join me in congratulating them. Congratulations, Employees of the Month for October. Yay!
Congratulations. 5.2 is the board report of the Del Mar, California Teachers Association with Kevin Cunha. Is he in the call? Followed by Phoebe Kessel. Go ahead, Kevin.
Good evening, President Halpern and members of the board and Dr. McClurg, members of the cabinet. Thanks thanks again for having me here tonight. I have very little to talk about tonight, just keeping it brief. But I'd like to say that DMCTA continues to work closely with the administrative team over there at the district office, and we've been just trying to address issues as they come up and make revisions to MOU if we need to, and really just take care of our teachers and our students and continue to make things the best we can. So appreciate the district being able to work with us so closely on that. Also, I would like to say that we are working on getting our school site presentations going again, so we can have some students hopefully maybe addressing the board coming up and showing some of the ways that they're working with their teachers and parents and making the best out of this year for what it is. And lastly, I'd just like to say I recognize that Erica Halpern and Jiwon Mock are running once again for their positions, and I just wanted to, on behalf of DMCTA, express our appreciation for the time you've spent as board members. We really appreciate all the work and time you put in and your dedication. We know that it's not easy work, and we know that it's not always a work that you get thanked for, so we just want to say we appreciate you, and we wish you the best of luck in the upcoming election. That's all I have. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Item 5.3 is a board report from Phoebe Castle from the Del Mar Schools Education Foundation. Go ahead, Phoebe.
Thank you. Good evening, President Halgren, members of the board, and Dr. McClurg, and members of the cabinet as well. We wanted to give an update. I'm not sure if my slides are there. There we go. Thank you, Chris. Here's our first slide to share some exciting news. We do want to start by thanking our entire community. We know what a difficult time this is for everybody, and we are very, very grateful that our community continues to step up and to prioritize our students' education and STEAM Plus learning, and you can see that here. So we did kick off our fall campaign about 3 weeks ago, and as of this past Tuesday, our community has contributed approximately $210,000, which we're thrilled about and so grateful. As you can see on this flyer, on this slide, we also have had employee matching dollars of over $20,000, which is fantastic. And this is just a great time to remind our parents that if you do contribute, please check to see if your employer does employee matching. It's a great way to support DMSEF in our district. Our average gift amount is $600 so far, and we've already funded 1.5 full-time STEAM Plus teachers for the next school year, so 2021 to 2022. So we appreciate everybody's generosity, and we welcome all of our community to join us in the upcoming few days as we get ready to close our fall campaign. So we hope people can continue to contribute and be a part of this campaign. And then, so next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. I just wanted to give a short update. Some of these things might come up again tonight at the meeting, but the district provided a fantastic STEAM Plus video, and I hope our communities had a chance to see it. It was great to see the STEAM Plus learning in action, both in person and in launch. And that goes to the heart of what we do at DMSEF. I also wanted to just make sure our community was aware that there are ongoing things at launch to help the community and help everybody that has questions or concerns. There was a launch parent meeting that was very well attended, and the launch advisory committee has been formed, and we'll have their first meeting next week. And I also wanted to say a quick thank you to our DMSEF board. We looking back at our records for last year, I was able to determine that there were over 1,700 volunteer hours served last year, and our board is on track to do that again. And I'm so grateful to them for wearing multiple hats, just like many of us do, but wearing their volunteer hat on top of all of the other things that they do to try to help our community and help STEAM Plus. So a big thank you to our board, because they worked tirelessly over the summer and through this pandemic, which is not easy. Next slide, please. And then just a special thank you. We were fortunate enough to have two fall fundraising campaign sponsors, and we are so grateful to them, to Gelson's Market, which I'm sure a lot of you know, but it's a fantastic market, and they have great options for lunch and all these great things. And They are really looking forward to being a partner for DMSEF now and in the future. And the same with Debbie Carpenter. We're very grateful to Debbie Carpenter, a local real estate agent who has supported DMSEF and STEAM Plus since her sons were in the DMUSD school district. So we're very grateful to both of those sponsors and look forward to that continuing partnership. And then the final slide 4. One last thank you. This was, something that I think I referenced the last time to the board, but it was just such an exciting collaboration. When school started and we realized there might be a need for some kind of chair or something for these students to sit in when they were doing outdoor learning or at lunch, DMSEF was able to work with the PTAs and work with 2 incredible sponsors, one Paseo and the Trust Restaurant Group, to facilitate the purchase of these chairs for almost every school in our community, and it was great to see everybody come together for that. So a big thank you to those generous sponsors and to our PTAs for all working together on that. And I just wanted to share those pictures because the kids look so cute in them. But thank you all, and we look forward to giving an update next month about the final numbers from our fall campaign. And thank you all for supporting it.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. We appreciate that and all you're doing for our kiddos. We have Tamara Wells next. If we can bring her into the call. This is item 5.4, a board report from the Del Mar Parent Teachers Association, and Tamara is our Carmel Del Mar PTA president. Okay, you're in the call, Tamara, but you're muted. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, President Halpern and members of the board and Dr. McClurg. This is our first PTA president presentation in so long. So I suggested a topic, and therefore I get to make the first presentation. And I will be speaking today in regards to advocacy and kind of the PTA role in child advocacy. The PTA is a national organization. We all roll up to a national organization, and it is an organization of advocacy. The PTA mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for children. And advocacy is right there in the mission statement. And PTA has been around for over 120 years, and some of the advocacy successes that they've had over those years, I mean, it dates back to child labor laws, universal kindergarten, the National School Lunch Program, and the juvenile justice system. So big topics like that have been successes of the PTA advocacy organization over the 120 years that we've been in existence. When we get to the California level of PTA, it's kind of shocking to note that the California PTA is our state's largest children's advocacy association. They do this by supporting propositions. Currently, they're encouraging yes votes on Proposition 15 and 16 in the upcoming election. They're also recommending write-in campaigns. I think everyone in the district is aware of expecting state-level budget cuts in state education spending due to COVID-19. So the California PTA is asking all of its members to write to their state representatives to ensure robust education funding in the next COVID-19 relief package. So that's kind of another level and tactic that they use. And a recent success in the California state level was Senate Bill 328, and that was a bill that was sponsored by the PTA, co-authored by State Senator Anthony Portantino, and it was the Senate bill that talked about school start times and this relates more to middle school and high school, but it's stated that middle school shouldn't start before 8 and high school shouldn't start before 8:30. That's something that was sponsored by the state PTA and was successfully made into a law. So, and what I really wanted to talk about was our advocacy at our local level. And PTAs, we roll our unit level, which is our individual school level. Carmel Del Mar, for example, rolls up into a local council, and then to the 9th district, and then to the state. But at our local unit level, our PTAs have recently advocated for supporting Prop MM. We've done that through actual funds for the campaign. We also encouraged and provided volunteers for the campaigning. We've written letters supporting individual campus concerns for usage of Prop MM funds. We've written letters supporting the Del Mar Heights rebuild, and we've written letters supporting the requests of our launch parents and families. I would say that all of that is, important part of advocating for our community, but probably the most of our advocacy revolves around creating relationships with our principals, our district, and our DMSEF reps. These relationships help communicate the concerns of our community at our local level. And so PTA, just in conclusion, is an advocacy organization directed at the benefit of all children and trying to empower and encourage all of our families. And so that's a little bit of the background and what we're trying to do as a community.
Thank you. I appreciate that report. That's a new one. We haven't heard that topic before, so thank you for bringing something really interesting to us. Okay, we will go on to board reports. 5.5 is board member reports, and let's just go in the usual order, which is Member Wooden first today.
Well, thank you. So I have two things to mention. It's been tougher getting to different meetings now with the COVID crisis going on, but I was able to join a Zoom call with the DMESF and following up with them. They do a tremendous job and put a lot of work into it. I congratulate them. I'm so glad they support us in so many ways. The other was a site visit. We normally would have had 2 site visits by now because we go to each school every month, but we haven't been able to do that as a board. We've been able to go individually, and I was able to go over to Ocean Air with Holly McClurg. Actually, it was 2 visits because half of that is Del Mar Heights. So they had the upper grades over at Del Mar Heights that are currently at Ocean Air. So I got to see both the Ocean Air classrooms and the Del Mar Heights classrooms, to see all the security or safety precautions they put into place with that. I was actually able to see the outdoor learning chairs, those little that the DMESF got. So they went out for their breaks, and the students were carrying the chairs out for in the outdoor areas. So that was nice to see. Also, the launch program, I got to see it from both perspectives of the Zoom environment. So as a Zoom participant into the call, and going to see it from the cockpit, the pilot cockpit area, from a teacher that was in a classroom by herself with all of the monitors. So she had an iPad, she had the laptop, another big monitor where she could see all the students. So it was quite amazing to see that in process. And we've done such a great job, both the in-person and the launch. I think all districts can be able to open up with students if they want to, and they put the plan in place. And I encouraged Holly to actually work with the other districts around and show them what we've done here, because it really was amazing. And being the first to actually see that in person, it was very fun for me and eye-opening. That's it for me.
Thanks, Scott. Member Mock.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I just have a couple of things. I also went on my site visitation. I actually went with Doug and we were both at Sage Canyon. And the one thing I would say is that I was really excited to see that the policies and protocols were followed to a T. I felt very comfortable there, actually, surprisingly. The students were, I would say, more compliant than actually in the regular community. Every student was masked up. Teachers were masked up as well. And it was amazing to see that even during their snack breaks, all the spots had been marked off with 6 feet apart, and they had been all very compliant. They're all sitting there in the lunch areas and 6 feet apart from each other because their masks were off at the time when they were snacking. And so it's amazing to see how compliant everyone was, and it's great. I felt, like I said, I felt comfortable there more so than even in going to the regular mall or something like that. So I think they've done a great job. I think the district has done a good job of enforcing everything, and the students have done a wonderful job, and the teachers and staff have done a wonderful job following with the policies. And the other thing that I did this last month was I joined in on a call with for Ashley Falls at the beginning of our No Place for Hate committee. So it was really amazing to see. I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of signed up for it, and apparently it was the student committee. So it was really great to see approximately 40 some odd students there that had signed up to join this committee because they didn't want to have hate and bullying at their campus. So we got a chance to talk to all these students about why they wanted to be there and why they wanted to join, and they were very adamant and very concerned about eradicating hate, and getting rid of bullying, and doing their best and whatever they could do to make it a welcoming environment and make all the other students feel welcome. And because of whatever backgrounds they came from, or whatever race, religion, creed, whatever they came from, they wanted to make them feel comfortable. And I thought that was amazing. And for that many students to come out and each one to kind of say that this is what they cared about, it was a wonderful, enlightening experience. And more power to them. I thought that was great. So thank you very much. That's all for me.
Thanks. Okay, Member Fitzpatrick.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have a short report tonight. I didn't get to go on the site visit this time around, unfortunately, but it was interesting because my daughter actually did get sick when she came home, and so now I understand the decision tree and the protocol, and she did get COVID tested, and I actually did the swab in her nose, and she does not have COVID, thank goodness. However, it was just a learning experience for us to go through, and I think that the district has done such a phenomenal job with putting all the protocols in place for us to keep everyone safe at school, and so kids are going to get sick still, and it's going to happen. But so I'm looking forward to a site visit soon. I also had the opportunity to speak with a representative from the Anti-Defamation League to just kind of see if board members can also take part in the training that the district has taken with the leadership team. So that was interesting to speak with her, and I'm looking forward to participating in that training. That's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Rafter.
Yeah, I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight, and as I got into my car this morning, I heard on the radio that San Diego Unified is considering opening up elementary schools in January for 4 days a week of somewhat hybrid education. And I thought about our district and what Holly III told me when I visited Sage Canyon, that we're really the only district in Southern California that is putting on a 5-day program full-time with a launch remote learning program. And we've been successful. And it made me just think about how in our district, the amount of work that goes in, how the teachers came together throughout the summer to make this happen. it just made me think that our mantra should be that this does not happen by accident. And I want to send out to all of the people that put together such a successful program in the midst of a global pandemic that we've never seen in 100 years. Kudos to everybody for making it happen. Kudos to the parents for buying into it and being patient with us, because it's the first time that anybody's ever done it. And I'm happy to be part of a district that is making it happen very successfully. And I just want everybody to know that I appreciate it, and I'm proud to be part of it. As Jiwa said, we went and visited Sage Canyon, and in my conversations with not only the students who were so happy to be there and able to play with their friends, the teachers that I spoke with were happy to be there in order to facilitate that and get back to learning. And they've adapted wonderfully. So I know we as a board say that we appreciate it, but I heard it from the teachers that the teachers are happy to be back doing it as well. So if anybody from any other district is listening or cares, come take a look at what we've done. It's not a secret. It's not easy, but it's you can do it. And so I encourage that. That's it.
Thank you. And I appreciate everything that you just said, Doug, and I just also want to underline just the magnitude of what the district has pulled off here. And actually, my site visit was a really great example of that, because it was at Del Mar Hills Academy, where actually there are 4 schools running concurrently there. You've got the Del Mar Hills Academy, where I was able to see 3rd graders who, a couple different classes, but 3rd graders, one cohort was working in groups of 4 outdoors, and those kids were creating groups to advocate for the dolphins, and they had posters, and they were very busy with their project. It was interesting, just a note, and I'm telling you a little more detail because not everyone's getting to go on campus, and it's really amazing to see how all the technology and all the pieces play in, and I'll talk about that with launch as well. But just as an example, the teacher had a microphone on a necklace, right? So she was able to speak at her regular voice and reach all the kids inside and outside because of different microphones set up. So the kids were able to disperse in their small groups, and of course they're masked, and she was able to talk to them all at once. So it was pretty neat to see how they were able to do that. So then I also saw the satellite Del Mar Heights campus for K-3, where there I saw an integrated arts class, and there were just tables set up outside for outdoor work, and the kids were all spaced out. The teacher, since that teacher sees multiple classes, was at a distance. And it's just interesting to see how teachers are figuring out ways to adapt and just be flexible and find ways to make it all really work. So the 3rd school I saw at this site was our Spanish Immersion program, where I saw one of the kindergarten classes, and there I saw all in Spanish, and pairs of kindergartners that were doing conversational work together. They were indoors, they're all spread out, and they were wearing masks. They were not 6 feet apart, but they were sitting in pairs and spread out from each other. So that was pretty exciting to see. And everybody knows that I've been an advocate for the Spanish program for maybe 9 years. So it's pretty exciting to see it in action even during a pandemic. And then the 4th school I visited was a launch class that I visited from the library. And that was also really interesting because when I got into that classroom, I was in a breakout group with the teacher and a group of students. And then anybody who's toured the classrooms in our district has seen these big poster boards and all these sticky notes with different colors. And the idea is, I think, to share your thinking, and all the kids put their ideas on these sticky notes and they put them on this board, and you see it in all the classrooms. And in this breakout room, there was the exact same thing, only it was just digital. And the tools that they used, the kids could each write on their own sticky note, concurrently put it on the board, just like a Google Doc. I'm not sure, I think it might have been a Google platform. And So they were kind of doing the same thing, and it's pretty amazing to see that same kind of instruction happening online. Obviously it takes a tremendous amount more planning for those teachers to figure out how to do it online, and then you have the tools like having the sticky note program that make it possible. But it's really amazing to see all this happening all at once. So it's a huge undertaking. I applaud the teachers for adapting, just never slowing down, and not just keeping our kids on track, but keeping our kids really excelling and reaching their potential in all of these programs. And then the work of the staff behind the scenes, both at the school site level and the district level, to plan all this, to plan over the summer, to hire teachers, to do all the safety protocols, and to be ready to open all these different schools in all these different formats. It is unique. I don't know if it's all of Southern California, but as far as I know, within San Diego, there's still no other district that is both open in person, full-time, and has a separate remote learning program that's taught by, their own teachers. So it's pretty incredible. So thank you to everybody who's made it possible, and to the parents who have been supportive and who have shared input and helped us to improve and evolve these programs. So thank you. And so now we are in the position of getting calls from other school board members who are asking us from other districts, how did you do it? So those are the calls I'm fielding right now. And it feels good to be in that position and try to do whatever we can to help other districts to pull off what we've been able to pull off here, and not by accident, but just through a lot of hard work and vision. So thank you. I'll finish with, I attended a meeting of the area school board members. It's the school board book club that we've talked about a number of times. And Catherine attended too. I think maybe, did you mention that? It's just it's a great way to share best practices across the districts, and it's all the feeder districts that feed into San Diego and San Diego. And so again, the topic was how to reopen schools and teach kids during the pandemic, and it was good to share ideas, and that's just a nice way for us to all learn from each other, because we all have the same kids going into a high school district. So that concludes my comments. And we will go on to item 5.6, which is the superintendent's report.
Good evening again, President Halpern and members of the board. I too want to share some of what's been happening throughout this past month or so, and to take a little bit of a lead from what you were talking about. There's a lot that happens, as you know, behind the scenes with all of the staff. And one of those is that all of the departments in our district have regular meetings with counterparts throughout the district. For example, I meet on a regular basis every week with the superintendents from the entire county, and all of our other members of our team do that as well, which is one of the ways we stay very informed and on top of the policies and practices that are actually the best policies and practice for this point in time. So that is part of what goes on to make sure that we are actually implementing best practice. We also are doing a great deal of effort on reaching our parents. So parent outreach continues to be a top priority. So the parent webinars that are going on, I have a chance to pop into those sometimes, as well as our principals are doing an excellent job at the school sites. The regular business of the district has been happening. So I'm proud to say that Ron Richart has had some professional learning virtual experiences with some of our teachers who are in cohorts. So it's great to see. It's one of the things that makes our district exceptional, is even in the midst of a pandemic, as you've said, we know it's important, so we continue to move ahead with great practice, great learning on the part of everyone. It's what makes our teachers and our entire district so exceptional. And then, of course, I appreciate what Kevin said earlier about the work that we're doing together with our teaching staff and all of the employees throughout the district, because it really is a team effort that's allowed us to arrive where we are, and I appreciate the ongoing meetings. I had a meeting last week with representatives from every school, a teacher from every school. It was a great chance to hear firsthand in real time how it really feels, what's really going on, and to get some great feedback, and cannot sing their praises enough. And I do also want to acknowledge just the extraordinary efforts on the part of every teacher in this district, the leadership in this district, every member of our support staff, and our board of trustees. You're right. While other districts are still talking about the potential date to reopen, or in some cases, those districts aren't even talking about that yet, aren't even having that conversation. The extraordinary people in this district at every level have moved mountains to educate every child, and with such impressive quality. It amazes me every day to see what's happening in our launch classes and in our in-person classes. And I do need to say it is with such extreme gratitude that as this district superintendent, I'm also a member of the community. I'm also a parent. I personally want to congratulate and applaud the Herculean effort that has gone into this from every person in this district, everybody who supports the work. Because what we have been able to do in this district to reopen schools full-time and provide a full-time exceptional launch program for every single student is amazing. So when we say we're about greatness, we really do. We have absolute greatness in this district at every level. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and so pleased and extremely grateful for all of you who continue to be a part of it. It really is. It's a district full of exceptional people doing great work, all because of kids, and you should all be very, very proud of that. So thank you to everybody. It's been another great month. Thank you.
Thank you. We are item 5.7, public input concerning items on the agenda. This is the last call for public input speaker requests regarding items on the agenda. We are about to close the public input link. We'll call you to speak when the item you have selected is up. Item 5.8 is board approval, governing board of trustees meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Well, second.
Roll call vote. Member Wooden.
Aye.
Member Mock.
Aye.
Member Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Member Raffner.
Aye.
Aye for me. The motion to approve the minutes has passed. Item 6.1 through 6.16 is the consent agenda. We do have speakers on a couple of items. Before we get to that, are there any questions on items on the consent agenda or anything to pull off? Okay. So we have 6.2, which is board approval and ratification, Del Mar Union School District agreements and amendments. We have Marianne Grossner, followed by Samuel Arias. Samuel did actually speak to this topic in his other comment, so I'm not sure if he's coming back in, but we can invite him back into the call.
President Halpern, I don't see Samuel on the attendee list, so
okay.
Aaron, he would like to, if he could raise his hand, I'll try to identify him.
Okay, and then otherwise we'll have Marianne Grossner followed by Bree. Okay. Okay. Marianne, you're on the call, so you can unmute and go ahead anytime.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm Marianne Grosner, and I'm running for Del Mar Union School Board. And members of the board, your board packets do not include any actual vendor agreements or retainers or cover letters. So I'm wondering if the board has access to these documents before making a decision to approve these vendors. And I'm wondering why this information is not in the board packets for the public to see. And I'm speaking in particular to the 5 law firm agreements that you are approving. Law firms are usually retained for specific matters, such as special ed, personnel matters, general matters, etc. Your vendor list does not state what purpose these law firms were to be used for. Most school districts usually specify this in their board packets. Also, I don't see a dollar amount listed for these agreements, so does the board know how much money they are approving? Or are the attorney agreements open-ended, meaning there is no cap to the law firm's spending? In the spirit of transparency, I would like to ask you to please provide vendor agreements or retainers and cover letters in your board packets for future board meetings like other school districts do. Also, I'm aware that DMUSD uses Fagan, Friedman, and Fullfrost for special education matters, and would like to know if there will be a cap on spending for litigating against children with disabilities. And speaking of FFF, is the board aware that they typically have a standard clause in their agreements to school districts that states they may bill the district for investigating families? Is the board aware that FFF has in fact engaged in hiring private investigators to do surveillance of families and then bills back to the client, which is the school district? One other thing I'd like to mention is that these law firm agreements ended June 30th, 2020, which means you did not have an active agreement for these law firms between July through today. So I'm wondering why the board approved over $200,000 of POs during this period without any agreements in place. I suppose it's better late than never that the agreements for these law firms are finally appearing before the board today and is retroactive to July 1st, but the public is curious to know why it took 3 months to renew these contracts. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have Bree followed by Rita Loof in this item.
I'm not seeing Bree.
Okay.
So I'm gonna...
Be sure to raise your hand Bree, if you would like to speak, and then we can take Rita Loof. In the meantime, I see she has her hand raised. Okay, Rita, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Del Mar School Board. My comments are regarding item 6.2 on your agenda, and I really appreciate the opportunity to comment and share how our family has been victimized by some of the law firms that your district contracts with. I was involved in a litigation which lasted 7 years. It was litigated all the way to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and I ultimately prevailed. And it was to deny my child's special education services. The district lost, but they their lawyers billed the district for every single minute throughout the 7 years. Now, amid the coronavirus outbreak, the law firm of Fagan, Friedman, and Fulfrost is suing children with disabilities. FFF has filed many legal actions to deny services to children with disabilities during the coronavirus outbreak. Tax dollars are being utilized to pay for litigation to deny these special education students rather than to fund services or paraprofessionals to help the kids. These funds to pay lawyers to deny services are being labeled as instruction-related expense in many cases, thereby hiding what they're actually being used for. On March 18th, while our state was under stay-home orders, FFF sued our family for $12,000, arguing they are due the money they needlessly spent on hiring private investigators to conduct surveillance on our family's attorney and private tutor. On March 18th, the school board actually voted unanimously to settle this case and give my daughter needed services, but yet FFF continued to pursue litigation without any board approval. Public records show that the firm spent over $124,000 in an 8-month period to litigate, but $0 to provide the services to the student. The law firm hired private investigators to do surveillance on our tutor and attorney. And I recently filed a complaint with the state bar about FFF because they filed a legal action in federal court over $8.40. I urge you to look into how this firm is operating because they will be victimizing the children of the Del Mar district. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll take, unless Bree has come back into the call, we'll take Marianne Grossner again for item 6.6, now that we've gone through 6.2 comments. And Marianne, you're still on the call.
Hi, thank you. My screen keeps switching between attendee mode and speaking mode. So I have a question regarding 6.6. how much are the contracts for STA and Hop Skip Drive collectively or individually? Does the board know the full contract amount that they are approving for these two companies? The information is not listed in the board packet for the public to see, and I'm just kind of wondering what the fiscal impact of these two companies are. Your previous special ed transportation company, Caravan, had a contract with DMUSD that was recently approved for $648,000. I believe that's back in August. Collectively, are these two new companies, the STA and Hop Skip Drive, are their contracts higher than that amount? Also, regarding special ed transportation, I'm hearing from some special ed families that their case managers were trying to remove special ed transportation from their students' IEPs. And these are students that are heavily impacted by their disabilities and require special ed transportation to access their education. One particular family has a child with an orthopedic impairment, so it was mind-boggling as to why the district would try and remove their special ed transportation. Are case managers being instructed to remove special ed transportation due to the possible higher costs associated with the two new companies, or do they perhaps need more training in special ed law? I'm wondering if the board is aware that this is happening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then for the board, are there any questions regarding items on the consent agenda, knowing that obviously we cannot comment on any ongoing legal cases or confidential student information? Okay, if not, we'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, roll call vote. Member Wooden?
Aye.
Member Mock?
Aye.
Member Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Member Raffner?
Aye.
Aye for me. The motion to approve the consent agenda has passed. Item 7.1 is the board report, Creating an Inclusive Community, No Place for Hate, with Shelley Peterson, Assistant Superintendent of Instructional Services.
Good evening, President Halpern and members of the board. So our first presentation tonight is exactly as President Halpern said, creating an inclusive community, no place for hate. And this is, we are revisiting this topic so I can update you and our community on progress. As it was when we began, our objective is to ensure an inclusive environment for all children and adults through training and lessons that equip us to collectively confront prejudice and discrimination. And through this work, we will develop cultural competencies and individuals who will actively work to eradicate racism and promote social justice. I'm sorry, Chris, that is the next slide. Thank you. So there's that objective written out, and you can go ahead and move on to the next slide, Chris. Thank you. So our priorities as we set out about this work was to ensure that we had community and staff input and that we were in close alignment with District Design 2022 and that we were creating a community culture where all students belong and that this work is ongoing. We don't, it's not a training and then we move on. This is ongoing work and is part of the fabric of our culture and will continue to grow and develop as we continue to dig deeper into this work. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. I wanted to revisit the anti-bias training, and we were able to get that scheduled. To date, our entire leadership team has had the opportunity to participate in this training, and we are in the process of scheduling it for all of the members of our No Place for Hate committees, and so that will take that will take place shortly, with the goal of having all staff members in our district participate in this training over the course of several months. And through this training, we learn how to confront prejudice and discrimination, respect diversity, increase cultural competency among adults in our district, and particularly those working with children. Next slide, please, Chris. The No Place for Hate curriculum, it was developed through the Anti-Defamation League, and this curriculum takes the approach that is student-centered and involves all stakeholders. And it really focuses on school climate improvement. And through this work, we help combat bias, bullying, and hatred. And this ongoing work leads to long-term solutions. We empower students to take a stand against bias and bullying. And we send a clear, unified message that all students have a place in our schools where they belong. Next slide, please, Chris. And through this community involvement, Jiwa, I was very happy to hear that you're participating in the No Place for Hate committee at Ashley Falls. These committees are actually in place at all 8 of our schools, and they are comprised of students, staff, parents, and the principal. And as I mentioned, the anti-bias training will take place for all committee members, has taken place already for our district leadership team, and we will continue with those trainings throughout the year and for as long as it takes, so every member of our organization has participated. And these No Place for Hate committees, they create community activities that promote diversity and inclusion through discussion, active learning, and reflection. And it's very exciting to have all of those stakeholders that I mentioned there in the second bullet participate on these No Place for Hate committees at schools, because the student voice is so powerful. Our parent voice is so powerful. And through that work and through that dialogue, we get really, really great conversation and really great ideas about how we can bring our community closer so that it is part of our culture. Next slide, please, Chris. And with that, that is an update on our inclusive community, No Place for Hate, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I know Catherine mentioned earlier, but is there an opportunity for the board members to participate? And I know that there's, we can't have more than 2 in any one session, but we could also consider partnering with our area school districts, which was an idea that Catherine had.
Yes, and that's something that we've actually talked about with our representative from the ADL, and looking at what those options are so that we can actually create a training for area board members, and with that collective, that group participate. And it would be obviously multiple trainings because it can't be more than 2 at one time, but I'm really eager to see how that plays out, because I think it's fantastic, important training for our entire community, and as governing board members, so valuable in your leadership.
Great. Are there other questions or comments from anybody? Okay. Well, thank you for undertaking yet another initiative and an important one. We are going to keep you here for item 7.2, which is the report on the Spanish language immersion program.
Yes. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, we are very excited to report on this item tonight. Chris, you can go ahead and move on to next slide. So our Spanish language immersion program is up and running, and as you know, it's our inaugural year. We have 3 classes at 2 school sites, Ashley Falls and Delmar Hills Academy. We have 3 fabulous, experienced, incredibly talented educators. And as I have visited each of those classrooms, I am astounded at the progress of the children in acquiring a second language. And the teachers will just rattle something off in Spanish and everybody goes off and does exactly what they're supposed to do. They don't bat an eye. And what's really fabulous is that all of our foundational pieces that make Del Mar are part of that immersion program. And Chris, if you'll go to the next slide, there are some pieces in there that are very exciting to look at. So for example, up in the upper left-hand corner, that is Blanca Stengel. She's a teacher at Del Mar Hills Academy. And you can just see there with some of the learning supports that she has in place, it's directly in line with what you would see in an English-speaking classroom counterpart. Over on the far right, you see Liz Loza. She is also at Del Mar Hills Academy. And if you look at that chart paper that's behind her, that will look very familiar to you as you have visited classrooms and seen all of those math stories that our children engage in for problem solving. So that is happening. The difference here, obviously, being that it's all written in Spanish. And then down below at the bottom, that is Vicki Anderson making use of her screen there to organize children into small reading groups. And so those children move seamlessly through all of those reading groups. I did happen to visit her one day, and it was her first day, and the children still did beautifully as she was running them through those rotations, and they were engaging in small group reading lessons. It was just really fantastic to see. Chris, next slide, please. And then I'd just like you all to take a moment to appreciate learning coming to life. It didn't quite come through, but the teacher cheered for her at the end, and she just looked up at her, and you could just see how proud she was that she had gotten through that. And it was just really a delight to see. So I just wanted to share that delightful learning with you. It is, as I said, just really amazing what our children are already doing in such a very short period of time. Chris, you can go ahead and move on to the next slide. All right. We are also focused on continuing to develop our FLES program. That's the study of foreign language for elementary students. We have all of our 6th grade students are getting Spanish twice per week in every classroom, and we have 4 teachers providing that instruction this year. With our increased number of sections, there was a need to add an additional Spanish teacher so that we could ensure all of our 6th grade students in launch had those twice weekly lessons, as well as all of our in-person sections. And this year we are refining that scope and sequence for learning for all of our 6th grade students. And on the next slide, please, Chris, you can see our students engaging in some learning activities that support their acquisition of the language through hands-on and some group collaboration. Next slide, please, Chris. All right. Our World Language Advisory Committee is up and running once again. It did take a pause while last year when we had to close schools, but it is formed, up and running. Almost every teacher who served on the committee last year is returning, and we've added parents this year whose children are participating in the Spanish language immersion program, so that is very exciting. We have already scheduled 4 meetings throughout the years. It includes teachers, parents, principals, and our instructional services team. And this committee will be part of providing input for continued program development for what does the communication need to look like as we move forward, so that we continue to attract families to our Spanish language immersion program. They'll provide us with input on assessment of students and reporting, and then really help to support those parent information nights for spring of 2021. What we couldn't do last year was bring parents from our district who had actually experienced the program, or students from our district who had experienced the program. And we couldn't bring in our immersion teachers because they hadn't been hired yet. So now that we have all of those pieces, we will build all of that into our springtime presentations as we continue to build these programs. Moving forward in the 21-22 school year, we will have the 2 strands that we will build. So there will be 1 kindergarten and 1st grade at Delmar Hills Academy, and 1 kindergarten and 1st grade at Ashley Falls School. Next slide, please, Chris. And thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have about that program.
Kelly, thank you for that presentation. I think I recognize that little girl.
Did you? I thought you might.
Yes, thank you. That was a treat to see. And I know that was my daughter Toba. I know she's really enjoying her days at the Hills and learning Spanish. What is the best way right now for parents who are interested in registering for next year to learn about the program and stay informed?
We still have all of our information on our website regarding our Spanish language immersion program. And in fact, we have actually added a link that has additional resources for parents and families to take advantage of. But we will begin in February, as we did last year, really promoting the program and including all of that in our district-wide communication to really recruit families who are interested. We are also going to engage in that to recruit families into our current year. We do have some spots available. It's a little bit complex when you factor COVID in, but because our program is designed so that we can accept students in 1st grade up till December of next year, we're confident that we'll be full as we start the new year in both kindergarten and 1st grade.
Oh. Will the outreach in February include preschools?
Yes. And we did that this year as well. We took all of our information to neighboring preschools and communicated with them. They were happy to support us and post our information and share that with parents.
And then my final question is, has the committee discussed including other languages yet at this point?
No, we have not.
More to your plate.
But I'm sure that's on the horizon at some point. But for now, we're focused on Spanish and ensuring we get a really strong foothold this year and next, and then move on to other desirable languages from our community.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shelley.
Shelley, what other school districts are doing this in the San Diego area?
There are a number of districts in the southern area, parts of our district. Out in Lakeside, there are some one-way immersion program. We visited a one-way immersion program. I think it was Logan Elementary in San Diego Unified. There are many dual immersion programs. It's tough to find a one-way immersion program. And there are some schools in the Lakeside District that also have, they offer a three-way program, so you can learn Mandarin and Spanish. They do a combination of in-school and after-school, so a combination of the Flex program along with immersion. Our neighboring district, Encinitas, has a dual immersion program, although I've heard conversation that it might move to a one-way immersion program, but so there are smatterings all over the place. But I'm just so pleased that we've been successful. I did have a visit last year from some administrators in Poway who came over to learn about how we were setting things up and interested in what they might be able to provide for their 5th and 6th grade students, similar to what we're doing with FLES.
Well, thank you for launching this program. I can't say enough about program, but also just launching it in the middle of a pandemic without missing a beat is like really pretty much beyond belief. So thank you for doing that. And I think that we can let you go and move on, or do we have you for the next item too? No, I think Dr. McClurg is doing the next item.
A couple of us doing the next one, yes.
Okay, I see. So this is item 8.1, Board Report, Superintendent Update on Reopening Schools and the Launch Program.
Thank you again, and I will be joined this evening by Shelley Peterson, who you were just hearing from, as well as Jenny Hauer, Director of Student Services. So we are going to talk about how it's going with reopening schools and with launch, and it is so exciting to be able to talk about this because what we have right now is 2 exceptional instructional programs. We've got in-person school and we've got launch. And both of these programs, Chris, you can go on to the next slide, both of these programs are 5 full days a week of learning for all of the students, which it was talked about a little bit before. Yes, this is the only elementary district in the county to provide these 2 options and to provide them full time. And it is something that is extraordinary. Wonderful learning is happening, and so much thought and planning has gone into it. It's so exciting to see all that has happened leading up to this point, and now to actually see children in both of those programs and doing such high quality learning, and our teachers just doing such high quality instruction is great. So next slide, Chris. So how was all of this achieved? As we think about this, we know there are some very specific things at play. First of all, this has been years in the making. And I'll hold up, I just grabbed this. Our district design 2022, this is around our district. This is not something that sits on our shelf, that is a strategic plan that we just kind of talk about. We actually live and breathe this. And part of what we've lived and breathed over the last several years has been all about culture and what we believe in. And we have an ideology and a belief system in our district that really is about doing what's best for children and embracing whatever it is that our children need us to do and provide for them so that learning and school is meaningful for them. And in that and throughout that process over the last several years, you probably remember as board members, and I'm sure members of our community, and I know that our staff does, that we really embraced words like radical. And we said, this, as we talk about revolutionizing the school system and the school experience for children so that it's as meaningful as possible for every child, we talk about personalizing it. We also talked about, and we own the word radical, because we're not just talking about little steps forward, we're talking about actually looking at how we do school so that it meets the needs for kids now. And so when we were presented with a pandemic over the last several months, again, years in the making have led us to really already living in a culture where we embrace and know what to do with radical change. It becomes part of a positive movement forward so that we can actually respond to what our children need. And we have been revolutionizing the school experience. And we keep talking about this is a silver lining of COVID or what we're experiencing, because some of what we're learning are things that we're growing with and growing from that make us even better. As challenging as it's been, we are better every day because of what we're learning and doing. So again, our district design is a part of what we do. Both programs, as we're going to talk to you tonight, have been influenced and are informed by and aligned with DD 2022. So launch and in-person are all about those elements of DD 2022. I will tell you that there has been an absolute focus on what we need to be, what our vision is, and where our efforts and energies need to be. And we have had an unwavering commitment to opening in person. If that had not been present, we would not have laid the groundwork, learned all that we did, put all the pieces in place over the last several months. It started in the spring to actually be able to open in person. And we kept at the core the question of how are we going to open our schools? And then with that, we had the simultaneous development of both things. We had the development of our in-person school, knowing that we needed a safe reopening plan so that we could reopen safely. And we know how to do in-person school. We also need to marry that with our safe reopening plan and the logistics required to keep everybody safe and healthy. And we also had an incredible amount of research, learning, and study that went into creating a quality distance learning program. That started last spring. People didn't even know it was happening, but our instructional services department was feverishly working behind the scenes, starting way back in April on developing Launch, which is why it has turned into the exceptional program that it is today. So proud of it. And it is something that our children are definitely benefiting from and thriving in. And throughout all of it, as we mentioned tonight, has been the attention that we pay to taking care of one another, to listening to each other, to working with all of our teams throughout the district. Every employee is important, making sure that we're communicating with one another throughout, hearing from everybody what they needed, and making sure that we were positive and collaborative throughout every step of the process. And it really has been, I again cannot sing the praises enough of every employee in this district to doing what is best for children and knowing how essential they are and working together to make sure that we can make happen the incredible Launch program and our in-person school that's up and running. Next slide, Chris.
Thank you, Holly. So I will be providing an update on our in-person program. And as Holly mentioned, we really started last spring, always with the idea and the goal of how to bring our students back. And again, never if, but how, and how to bring our students back to school in person safely. And so what has made our in-person program a success? It really hasn't been one particular factor, but a combination of three interdependent factors. So first, we already had a strong academic core established. And the same high quality instruction that was in place prior to the pandemic is continuing. So when the pandemic started, we heard a lot of talk about new normal, and this is our new normal. And our in-person program at Del Mar is not our new normal. It's just normal. If you were to walk into one of our classrooms today, yes, you would see that teachers were wearing face coverings and students are wearing face coverings. And you might see plexiglass dividers between students at a table, but you would still see the same high quality instruction and learning that you would have seen in any of our classrooms last year or prior to the pandemic. So second, knowing that we had that strong academic core in place, we were able to focus on developing a plan that would allow our students to return to school in a safe and healthy environment. So we've been able to effectively follow the state and local mandates, health mandates and guidelines, and also our safe reopening plan. GY, I really appreciated hearing you say that you felt safe entering our school campus and seeing all of the students comply with the health mandates and the safe reopening plan. That's really been a key component for us to be able to open safely. It, again, hasn't been one factor, but a combination of measures. So all of our students, grades K to 6, and our staff are being compliant and wearing face coverings. Our cohorts are maintained in a stable cohort so that they're not commingling, and our students are accessing lunch and recess in their assigned zones for their cohorts. Our teachers have been looking at how to maximize that space, their spaces, and also really thinking creatively about how to utilize the outdoor spaces as well. So finally, we've had a solid plan in place for responding to illness and positive cases of COVID-19. I've been so impressed with all of the work that our instructional teams and our health teams have done to be prepared for those situations. Our health teams are really doing an outstanding job. Our health techs are at each school and are responding to students who may be sick or demonstrating any symptoms of COVID-19. And Catherine, like you mentioned, we are very strictly following our mitigation protocols and requiring students to maintain that 72-hour period after a symptom has resolved, and then having a negative PCR test before that we're permitting students to return to school. So our nurses are also working with families. They're tracking students who have any kind of symptoms, anybody who's had a test, when students will be permitted to return to school after an illness, and really supporting our students and our families in that process. Our nurses also are acting as liaisons with the County Department of Health and supporting any families who may be sick and attending, but while also attending to all of their other mandated requirements of their positions. So we also learned that the 2 weeks of remote learning prior to reopening in person on September 8th really allowed our students to engage with their teachers in that period and build a relationship. But it also allowed our teachers and our students to establish a routine and a practice for their remote learning that enabled them to be able to really seamlessly transition to and from remote instruction when there was a situation of a positive case. So when we did have a positive case, our teachers and our students were comfortable with that remote learning practice, and they were able to transition to remote learning and back to in-person learning without any loss of instruction. Wait, Chris, I'm almost there. So we are very, very proud of our in-person instruction and that we are able to provide this program 5 days a week, and that it has been successful. And like I said, it's been a combination of these factors, and they've all kind of combined and been interdependent in the success of our program. Okay, Chris, now you can move forward.
All right. Thank you. And I am going to talk about what has made the launch a success. And both Holly and Jenny have already spoken to this, but we set out from the very start to talk about how do we create a high quality distance learning. And we start where we always start, with a focus on excellence in education, research, and best practices. And all of those pieces were in place as we set about to design our distance learning program. We looked at what platforms are useful. We listened to all of the parent feedback we received during that period between March and June. We knew what wasn't working for families, and we set about to design a program that really assisted families and children in their learning throughout the course of this year. And as Holly said, we embrace the word radical, and we embrace radical change and transformation, and that's what this has required, that this was a radical shift from how we typically offered our instructional program. So what's contributing to making launch a success? The communication, the strong academic core, and the professional learning. With communication, we have opportunities to provide feedback and communication about the launch program and to listen to feedback. And so I will share a more detailed list when we move on to the next slide. That strong academic core. So the instructional programs in launch, they really are synonymous with what happens in our classroom. It's in our classrooms. It's not as if there is one instructional program or practice over in launch and then in person is getting something entirely different. All of the same high quality teaching is at play in both settings. Throughout the day, children are provided with meaningful synchronous learning, and they get instruction in both whole group, small group. They're supported by library media specialists and instructional aides, and students and families receive feedback just as they would in person on student learning. We have continued professional learning, and that really is one of the key factors that I think really contributes to our classrooms looking different and looking amazing. Our teachers don't stop. They learn. They learn, they participate, and when we design professional learning programs, we design them over the course of several years. We don't take a one-and-done approach with anything we do. So that continued professional learning, we're offering Tech Mondays for all of our launch teachers. They've already received professional learning around mathematics for both synchronous and asynchronous strategies to engage students in problem solving and sharing of their math strategies. Our launch teachers, as well as our in-person teachers, are participating in Ron Richhart cohorts. I know that Polly mentioned that we have resumed that training and professional learning. We have had iReady training, both how to use the learning pathways as well as what to do with the data we get from our students participating in the iReady platform. And then upcoming, we have professional learning on a multitude of digital tools based on feedback from teachers. We ask them, what do you want to learn more about? Jamboard is a great example. It supports thinking routines or the use of asynchronous videos in a station rotation model. All of that is yet to come and based on feedback that we get from teachers because they want to find really engaging ways for their children to participate in the learning. Chris, you can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So, what program support has been in place since we launched Launch? So, if we just look at program support and staffing, there is a director of curriculum and instruction directly supporting this program, a coordinator of data assessment and integrated technology, a coordinator of curriculum and instruction. We have an instructional services program assistant that provides high levels of support to launch and our launch families. We have a special education administration ensuring that students and all their needs are being met. Our school principals support launch teachers. We have a launch administrative assistant just like we have at all of our in-person school sites. Our technology department has been indispensable in acquiring the necessary technology and assisting parents via the helpline and teachers via the helpline to ensure that that technology is as seamless as possible. Our support staff includes our library media specialist and launch instructional aides. How do we get involvement? What does that look like, and what do those feedback loops look like? We have a launch advisory committee, and as I think Phoebe Katzel actually mentioned, that advisory committee is up and running next week. We have district-wide presentation parents from all 8 of our schools, as well as teachers from a range of grade levels, and our principals are participating on that committee as well. There are 2 representatives. We have facilitated grade level meetings, and when I say facilitated, that means that administration from program support is meeting with all of those grade level teams in their collaboration, kindergarten through 6th grade, throughout the month, to ensure that they have what they need and they are getting the level of support they need. We have facilitated special education meetings. We have facilitated STEAM Plus meetings to ensure that those programs are running seamlessly. We have meetings with our library media specialists. We had a launch room parent meeting. So all of our 53 sections have launch room parents. We have room parent liaisons, and those help act as coordinators for our programs or for activities, as well as liaise between our PTAs and our launch program. We have principal meetings with launch teachers. We have principals who schedule regular time to meet with all of the teachers who are in launch, as well as visit their launch classrooms. And we have launch classroom observations. And then the communication with our launch community. They, all of the principal messages, as well as the weekly mission memo, are going to all launch families. If I am a parent at Ocean Air and I am in launch, I get both the mission memo as well as the principal information about what's happening in person at Ocean Air School. We have learning coach meetings. Our teachers facilitate those sometimes multiple times during the week to help support the work of the parents at home. PTA newsletters are communicated and distributed to all of our launch families. We have the Launch Google site. It's a beautiful site, and it is updated weekly with current information. There's district communication that is shared with all families in our district. Direct communication with teachers, principals, and district administration. All of those families by school are invited to attend principal coffees, and they are also made aware of the information through PTA meetings, when PTA meetings are occurring. So as you can see, this is it's a rather extensive list. This is a program that gets a great deal of attention, and that is why it is as successful as it is. We have excellent teachers who are working very, very hard to ensure that best practices and high quality instruction is in place. All right, thanks, Chris. Next slide. So when we've heard what Holly's described about how we have pulled off a tremendous feat and the only district in San Diego County that's offering 2 full-time programs, Jenny describing that interplay between a safe reopening and high quality instruction, and how we started with that high quality instruction, but we had to layer all of the safety protocols on top of that. And then our incredible distance learning program. What you really see is excellence on display. And that should be no surprise, because that's what we've always been about, excellence in our district. We have a strong instructional core. That is what we look back to when we embark on anything. We have a culture of thinking and innovation. That work is ongoing, and it will continue to develop. There's a strong organizational culture and efficacy. And because of that, we have leadership at all levels. We have teacher leaders. We have leaders within special education. We have leaders within our classified staff. So it's not just that we have district leadership at the district office. It permeates our district, and our teachers have been incredible. I said that at the last presentation. They have demonstrated that we are in this together and that they can help make this happen. There is agency and ownership, exceptional instructional teams and support staff. And we have never been a team to talk about what could happen well, let's spend 20 months developing a plan and then we'll try it out and we'll make sure that everything is perfectly designed. We are a team, a district team that engages in rapid development. We do our research and then we try it and we continue to refine with that iteration. This isn't working quite right. What's the next iteration? And we do all of that as we receive feedback and refine and feedback and refine. And I think Holly said this early on that she's very proud of this district and very proud to be associated with the work going on in this district. And I think I speak for our entire team. We feel that way as well. And we have much to be proud of. When I look around and think of the thousands and thousands of children who are still not in school, and here we have done that in DMUSD. Our kids are attending school full time. It really is a remarkable feat. Chris, next slide. Thank you, and I'm happy, as are Holly and Jenny, to take any questions you might have.
I just wanted to make a comment just to say thank you for all the hard work, because this was a big endeavor, and to put everything together and to get that going in the fall. And I really appreciate all the hard work that you've done. And like you said about the launch program, it wasn't a done program when we set it out there and say this is it's going. We had to do a lot of reiterations, and I applaud you guys for working with the parents who said here's some deficiencies along the way, and then trying to incorporate that. When I was at Ocean Air, I was shown, here's the bigger monitor that we were able to get from the tech labs, and be able to put that so we can see all the students on one screen. And so those are some of the improvements that until you get on the ground and going, you don't know that you need those types of things. So I appreciate all that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley, for this presentation. The thought comes in my mind. You guys there's so much new stuff that we're learning and doing, like, what's the expression, we're walking and chewing gum at the same time, or I don't know what it is, but I can only imagine that some of this stuff is going to be used in the future. We just don't quite know how yet, but there's a lot of good stuff that we're incorporating, and it's definitely changing education as we know it, or as we did know it. So it'll be interesting to see what sticks from this and what we can keep using. But thank you for all the hard work you guys are doing.
Thank you. And you're right, we've learned so many lessons, so many. And there is a lot. You will often hear us say COVID silver lining, because we discover something, and we know that that's going to move forward with us, and our children and our teachers are going to benefit well into the future. I would never wish to live through another pandemic. However, we have learned a lot of lessons, and we're very excited about the months ahead and really look forward to beginning to plan our new school year.
I just was going to ask really quickly. Yeah, thank you for everything. I just had a quick question. We received an email about STEAM Plus and launch. I was wondering if you can address that. Can you talk about how I guess maybe allocations are made, or how that works with the launch program and then in person? Just kind of chat about it a little bit. Just kind of curious about that.
Sure. The STEAM allocations have been and have always been made according to sections. And so some sections have a lower number of students, and some sections have a higher number of students. So it's not a straight formula of we have X many students, and so therefore we should have this much of an allocation. It's based on the number of sections. Something else we have to remember is that our school day was significantly shortened. And so all of our in-person and our launch programs,
each of those classrooms benefit from 3 launch experiences per week. And it is the same in person as it is in launch. And so we are very confident and comfortable regarding the STEAM Plus allocation. And in fact, we did a survey to all of our teachers and all of our parents, and not a single teacher requested, wanted, had a desire for, or expressed a desire for more STEAM during the course of their school week.
And when we talk about the day that Shelley's talking about, we had to think about all the logistics with staggered start times and dismissal times, and we didn't want children at lunch for as long, so we made that shortened, and how do teachers plan and all of those things. So we still want them to have that full day experience, which they do, and allow for all of the logistics that also needed to be in play. So it definitely has made us really look at each child's schedule to make sure they still have a full day instructional schedule with that core, and how does STEAM Plus fit in the best way it can, and all of the children in, whether it be in launch or in person, have the same amount of actual STEAM time. So it might look a little bit different. For example, we can't have music in person right now. So our launch children are actually quite fortunate that they have music. So there are just some things that might look a little bit different, but every year they look a little bit different. For example, some schools might have, depending on how it works with their instructional program, they might choose to do art for a month for a grade level, and then the next month they have music. So those are things that can take on the flavor of the school and what best meets the needs of the students at that school. That isn't necessarily exactly the same at every school. We don't want to dictate all of that from the district level, because then it's not meeting the needs of that school.
So what you're saying is, so there's 3 experience. So each class, regardless where we're at, has 3 STEAM classes, I guess, per week. That's what I heard, right, Shelley?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so it just kind of varies depending on, and based on what Holly said, it just kind of varies depending on what school, and some people might have science, art, and music, and another class may have something else, another mixture. And there isn't any particular selection process or anything. It just kind of depends on the school, like you were saying.
Yes, it does. And when we're talking about in-person, so here's a good example. Right now, all classes receive science in launch. And because of how the cohorting works in person, that was more challenging. So we had to stagger how that cohorting looks and how we offer science. And so all students don't get it all at the same time, which is why, as you remember when we were talking about science instruction, it was so important for us to get curriculum adopted, piloted and adopted, because really we're dependent on classroom teachers to help facilitate that learning with our science specialists to support. All students are getting PE throughout the week, but with art and music and integration specialists, that's a little bit of a flex, like Holly described. For the first trimester, you might have art. For the second trimester, you might have music. And then for the third trimester, you might go back to art at some grade levels or have music again. So there is scheduling. STEAM Plus is probably one of the most complicated things principals have to do, and it was tremendously complicated with our launch program as well. But just moving those pieces and parts around and ensuring that all teachers and all students had experiences within our STEAM program was really the objective.
Yeah, thank you. I'm perfectly comfortable with the offerings. I was curious as in terms of what you were just talking about there, some schools might offer this and change back to something else. Is there a way to let people know about that, or how that might work? Because I know that I think for some people it just kind of their question is basically what are we being offered, and will it change, or Like for instance, like I didn't. My son has science, art, or not science, music, and PE. And the PE kind of changed. It became like asynchronous for 1 week, and if there are any other changes, basically, I think that's what parents are asking about. Is that will there be other changes? Like what, and how will that look? And can we be informed about that?
Yes, and we actually will be communicating some changes as they are planned to occur, and it's so that we can ensure that all children get those experiences throughout the year that are included in what we describe as our STEAM Plus program. And we are very conscious about changing classroom schedules. So when you change specialists, you can't just pull one from one time slot and plug it into another time slot. It's much more complex than that. And so we are also careful not to upend classroom teachers' schedule, because now they've worked that out with parents and they have their routine going. So we want to make those offerings fit into established schedules. But yes, to your point, changes such as that will be communicated prior to when they occur.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and I also just want to say thank you for iterating on this program in a collaborative way over the course of the past 2 months. Obviously, launching a program for 1/3 of our kids is yet another huge undertaking of the district, and so it can't be perfect out of the gates. And so I always say that having that communication and that transparency and collaboration is what makes things improve. And I know that continuous improvement approach is how you improve your programs all the time. So it's great to see parents part of that, and I appreciate all the engagements and the letters and everything, because all of those contribute to making sure that we're both communicating good information like this topic that Jiwa just raised, and also getting input so that we know what the parent and the child experience is for these programs, and we can improve. So thank you. Are there other comments on this or questions? Okay, thank you. We are moving to item 9.1, Board Report Facilities Update with Crystal Hunty.
All right, thank you. Good evening, President Halpern, members of the board, and Dr. McClurg. Let me pull up my presentation here. All right, again, good evening. And tonight, for our facilities update, I will be sharing some information on Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9, some information on our Delmar Heights School rebuild, and some overall information related to Measure MM facilities projects. So we'll start with Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9. And with Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9, we were excited to get the Commonwealth Valley Community Planning Board approval of the project just after our last board meeting. But I also want to share a little bit about where we are with our coastal development permits and the process to this point. As you'll remember, as we worked with the city in understanding the coastal development permits, we were originally shared that we didn't need to go through the permit process, and then we had that reversed by the city. You may remember when we've shared about Pacific Highlands Ranch, the very southeastern end has just a little bit of coastal development, coastal zone on it. And with that small amount and it being a master plan community, we needed to reach out to the city and determine what the steps would be. Unfortunately, it took us 5 weeks to get a determination from the city. After that, we submitted to the city, and it took them 6 weeks to review our submittal and get us to our first cycle review. So we're now in the first cycle review. It started in early September. It should have ended October 5th for most of it, and October 14th for one item. We have, of the 12 reviews, 7 of them have come in after their due date, and we do have one that still has not been provided to us. So we are struggling a little bit with the timeline with the city. However, our staff and our consultants have been reviewing comments as they've come in. We've been able to resubmit some of those comments and look for some response and review from them. The one I guess, silver linings we talked about with the COVID silver linings. This also, one silver linings, the manager has been sending those to the reviewers so that we can try to check off some of the issues. Groundbreaking will be delayed, but the project will not. So we're looking at, based on this, it may be December, maybe January that we get the coastal development permit. Right now it looks like that will not cause any problem in meeting the August 2022 school opening. We'll have no issues with that. And we still are having bi-weekly, every other week meetings with Erickson Hall, our contractor, OBR architects, talking through the pre-planning things. So we have everything moving in that direction. But I wanted to update the board because we were hoping to be breaking ground next month, and it definitely will be December or January. But we'll absolutely be able to make it, and we have no concerns about being able to get this project completed on time. With our Del Mar Heights School rebuild, we have two items we'll speak to tonight.
I'll just ask you quickly before you move on. So it sounds like December or January is when you're going to break ground. And then, so I know you said in August 2022 you'll be ready for that school year. Do you know like when you think the completion will be roughly? If you moved it back, like the start of the groundbreaking, it seems like it might be moved back like a month or two. So is that about like what you think that the completion date will be?
It won't be exactly a month. So we've been having conversations so that we can look at. This was a very traditional timeline of building the school. We don't have to demo the school. We had more time than we have with Del Mar Heights. So we're going to look at two things. We're still going to aim for completion probably in the June area for substantial completion, which would allow us to get into some of the maybe classroom buildings even before that, maybe allow us to get into the administration building and do some pre-planning even before June, and still give us the whole summer to be able to get into it. So we will be looking at that, and we'll be looking at phasing completion so we can have things like the administrative building and the MUR completed first, and be able to use that if we wanted to have community members come in and do some pre-planning. So we've already been discussing that, and that could mean adjustment to the timeline overall. It could mean, depending on when it starts, that the timeline shifts because we were already tracking towards a May for much of the completion in our original schedule. So we're going to do a little bit of both. There might be that we speed a few things up, and there might be that the phasing, but in the end, we're going to make it so that our substantial completion is still June, so we have buffer should anything go a little bit sideways. On top of that, though, we also plan in rain days and things like that. So there's a whole lot that we're putting in there so that we won't have any issues completing on time and well before that August opening.
Great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So again, with the Del Mar Heights school rebuild, we are the litigation, the hearing is still November 18th. So that is 3 weeks from today, actually. And we will be, we're in the process of the briefs and the back and forth that our attorneys are doing with Procopio on behalf of Save the Fields. And we also are in the resubmittal process for a coastal development permit. As a review, we obviously went through the community design process, as we shared before, a very interactive process where we invited the whole community. We had over 400 participants going through the 7 community meetings, shared them with the community, shared them with the Del Mar Times, and we're fortunate to have the paper cover it as well so that we kept the community informed. Our architects and staff again went in July of 2019 and met with the City of San Diego where they talked about it being more of a review. And then in April, May of 2020, as we were circling back, looking at the coastal development permit, the initial city response was no permit required. That was then reversed in May 14th, 2020, and we got right on the application process. That started in May and was accepted June 9th of 2020. We've talked about these timelines, but I will highlight again August 21st, where prior to that, we've been moving forward with a process that was requiring just the coastal development permit and not other permits. At that meeting, we were informed that the city attorney had been consulted. There were further city requirements, and city staff said that they were aware of the litigation, and we know that city staff had received communication from Procopio on behalf of Save the Fields. This led to a follow-up meeting in September 1st where further information was shared, and we've shared the requirements, but in essence, there was additional permitting added and additional requirements, new what they call issues in the permit process that we have to clear that were brought up. So to bring us to today, most recently we've had a meeting with the city to clarify items on October 20th. We are resubmitting as a formal cycle, and we'll continue to provide information to address those issues so we can move to a hearing for approval of this permit. I do want to speak about the delay though, because as we've been moving through this, as I've shared before, we have obviously the lawsuit that's filed by Procopio on behalf of Save the Field. We have the letters that have been sent to city staff, and this is really, it's caused further review. It's caused an increased level of review, because as I said, after that meeting, the city council, a city attorney consultation, and including those further requirements, it's undeniably delayed. And to me it's appalling that this project is a place that we're at, because we have Del Mar Heights School rebuild delayed. On top of it, we have students who are off campus. And this is based upon the fact that we have had this increased scrutiny that's come to this coastal development permit process, but it has come only after the fact that the city became aware of the lawsuit filed by Procopio on behalf of Save the Fields and the letters that were sent. With these students off campus, with this delay, we have projects that are delayed and impact this district-wide, and it's impacting each individual modernization. At this point, our Del Mar Hills Academy planning has not begun, and it should have begun. At this point, I had planned to have already worked with our architect, Mayanakis, that the board has approved, been able to start to bring information to the Del Mar Hills community. We are still working towards that, but the time, the commitment by our staff and our consultants to work through this coastal development permit has required us to delay that piece. And then that, in turn, when we look at this overall delay, slows the impact to classrooms and schools across our district. And I think most importantly, there's a student impact. And when we look at this, all of our Del Mar Heights students are off campus. We have portables that are placed at Del Mar Hills Academy and Ocean Air School. And without a change in course, we currently, Del Mar Heights rebuild will not be completed by August of 2021. Unless there is a change in course, unless there is, the litigation goes away, we're going to have to look at how we could phase this in. If that moved away and we can move forward, and we'd be able to phase things in and be able to phase students in during the 21-22 school year. Barring that, we will continue to update the board on the timeline and what that looks like. But at this point, students will be off campus to start 2021-2022 school year. And with that in mind, I wanted to update the board on our measuring and facilities projects, because this all ties together. As we look at the Measure and projects, I'm going to talk a little bit about our overall projects, our major projects that we've shared on Series A, B, C, and D, and we'll talk a little bit about potential timeline impacts associated with the delays, and then we can touch on the financial impacts. But when we look at Series A, we've already issued these bonds. We have the money to do this work, and we've been working on the Del Mar Heights School rebuild, Pacific Highlands Ranch School number 9, Victoria Hills Field upgrade, and in addition with dollars and CFD money and other funds, we've actually been able to do the blacktop resurfacing at 4 of our schools. We've been able to add sinks and water bottle fillers at every one of our schools. We've been able to upgrade classrooms and interiors and flooring and move into some furniture at certain classrooms at every one of our schools. But as we look forward into Series B, when we look at the funding, we have kind of 2 scenarios. When we do these fundings, we have anticipated dates we've been sharing. If we have delays, there is the potential, this 2021 funding date is because we were going to spend so much to build these 2 schools that we needed to fund before the 3 years in that first series. If you notice, we have till 2022 on Series A, and we were expecting to fund earlier. If we are delayed, there may be a pushback in Series B. The funding could be that we needed to move to, say, 2022 to start that funding source. But in the end, the start of Del Mar Hills Academy modernization has been delayed. If that continues, there's potential that Carmel Del Mar's modernization is delayed. And whether that means that it's a little later in Series B or it needs to look at Series C, those are the things that we're going to be working through as we continue revising and relooking at our long-term planning. as we get into Series C and Series D, we can't tell what that delay will look like, but dates and schedules may be impacted by the current delay. So as we look out at the longer term, obviously the impacts of multiple projects start to run into these, and we don't have an update on these, but we know that there's the potential for impact. What I'll point to in this, though, is that, again, delays in our initial projects can impact the long-term planning, and delays in initial projects can impact each individual project after. But the other piece, and we've talked about this with the board before, is escalation. When you look at it long-term, the industry standard is to look at 4% per year. And so if we end up seeing delays that impact other projects, there will be an escalation factor that will come in. This is something that we'll be monitoring and we'll be revising year over year. But when you look at that, $10 million becomes $10.4 million the next year, $10.8 million in year 2, and $11.25 million in year 3. So it does start to add up, and that either means that you're adjusting budgets to certain projects, or we're adjusting scope to projects. And so this all hasn't come to fruition yet, and we are still working to minimizing the impact of delays. But the delays we are potentially seeing with Del Mar Heights do trickle down to the others. So what we are doing is we've started to do a review of the capital improvement plan. This is where we'll look at some different scenarios. This is something that we were going to do semi-annually to look at generally the overall projects and how they line up together. And so we're going to do some work on that. I've begun a little bit of the work, and I'll be working with Mark Pong and Kathy Burks, and then with our cabinet team. And in the coming months, it won't be next month, but in the coming months, we'll be able to come back to the board and share a little bit more about some scenarios and a little bit more about what we're seeing with possibilities and recommendations related to that, and be able to keep the board informed as to overall impacts that we're seeing and overall planning that we're doing to make the most of our measure event funds. And with that, I would be very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Chris, I just want to make a quick clarification, just something as I was listening to your presentation. You were talking about the litigation has brought additional scrutiny. And I just want to make it clear that the additional scrutiny wasn't because there's anything untoward or anything that was different. It's just additional layers of bureaucracy or additional things that they're looking at. And in a similar project like this at other districts, they don't go through this same process. Is that kind of fair to say?
I think that in this district, we weren't going through the same process until the city was made aware of litigation for CEQA, which is in our coastal development permit, and was had been contacted. And so prior to that August 21st date, there was no conditional use permit that was being required. There was no site development permit that was being required. And so there are further requirements and further permits that we were not being asked to do. We've had conversations with our legal counsel, and we can make a strong case that the conditional use permit does not even apply. We are still looking at how we can move through this permitting process in a timely manner, though, in a manner that allows us to keep the project moving forward. So we are always balancing compliance and moving through steps that we may or may not agree with getting the project done in a timely manner. And there are some things that were added to this after that August 21st meeting that I would say in a bubble where we can talk about what we truly believe is right or wrong, we should not be having to comply with. However, they are steps that we can take to keep the project moving forward without too much negative impact.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me that there were additional things that were added on that we may not have had to do otherwise had this litigation not brought up, and not because there was anything that we didn't do improperly. It's just that it's just brought additional things and made the process just that much longer.
That's absolutely right.
Okay. Thanks. Another thing, just quickly, one thing I guess wasn't brought up. What's going to happen with the Heights kids if these projects are delayed? Are they still? Is this going to be an issue that's going to be prolonged? And are they?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Jiwan. I think that It's something that we're giving thoughts to, but something that we will have much more clarity if we have, as we get past the litigation hearing that we have, as we get a little closer to the coastal development permit. And those items are all items that we should have, or we would expect to have cleared up and have much more clarity on in the coming couple of months, with more than enough time to kind of look at the 21-22 school year and make a decision. So on one hand, there's the possibility that, as I said, we're in a place where we could phase students in over the 21-22 school year. If that were the case, then it would make a lot more sense to have students off campus. If it became a longer delay that we don't foresee, then I think we have time to address that and plan for that as we get into the next calendar year.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to point out that, again, like we've said this multiple times at every meeting, but you're really kind of making it more concrete now in that every single thing that this Heights project, the delay on this one, impacts every other school. It impacts the schools where the kids are at right now from the Heights. It impacts projects that are planned but cannot be moved forward, like Hills. It impacts the ones that are further down the road that's for funding that you're talking about, Carmel Del Mar. And I just want to reiterate that again, that this is not something that's isolated to Heights. It is something that is going to impact the rest of the school. And these construction costs, like you were saying, 4% per year, where it's, our $186 million that we have sitting there, it is going to get dwindled real quick if it's going to take a few more years to do it. So I want to reiterate to everybody and that's maybe out there in the community and everything, that this is a big deal that affects your tax dollars that you're being taxed on. And it's basically going to be going spent on litigation costs and additional construction costs because of this delay. So it's a sad process, and it's something that I'm disappointed because my money's being wasted. Frankly, it's like tax dollars that I paying for, things that I advocated for, and now it's going to be just getting blown. So it's a disappointment to me.
It is true that the delays from the litigation are having a huge impact. They will have a huge impact on the finances, as you've said. It is very unfortunate that they're having a huge impact on children and where they're educated and what we need to think about this year and into the next year, as well as projects. This greatly impacts everyone in this district and every school, and it's very unfortunate. And everything that you've talked about, Chris, is a reality, and it's what we're living through. And I appreciate the hard work of you and your entire team to move us through this process to do what's best. Again, this is a beautiful school that has been planned by the community. We believe in it. We believe in it because the community has been part of developing that plan. And I think it's really important to continue to remind people of where this school plan came from. It came from that process with the community, with the educators in this district. And it is a school that will be a wonderful school for the children and a great asset for this district in the future. So thank you for all of your hard work, Chris. And it is very unfortunate that the litigation is causing these delays.
Well, just let me echo again. Yeah, Chris, thank you very much. You've done a great job. I hope that wasn't like anything to say that you're not doing what you need to be doing, but you're doing great. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, I would just add to that. I think, in line with the thinking of when the district was planning for, after schools reopened, it wasn't a matter of if, but when and how we would get students back in classes. I think that the same thinking is serving us for this project. It's not a matter of if, but when it will happen. And so I am looking forward to your presentation of creative solutions that we can use right now, perhaps shifting projects around right now during this time where, we do have a setback, but we'll get through it, and we will make the most of it.
I wouldn't call it a setback. It's more of a roadblock. And I think we need to, Chris, set our expectations properly. I have always been an advocate for trying to get this thing resolved quickly, and boy, I would welcome that if it ever occurred. I don't believe that this hearing, as you mentioned it, is going to be the end of this. If the district is successful, I believe it'll be appealed. I believe the intention on the other side is to delay the construction here at the jeopardy of our district and our kids. I had one teacher call me to say that the people bringing this lawsuit have taken his son's childhood. He's going to be out of elementary school probably when the school is finally done. He's going to be in a new school that we only intended them to be in for a short period of time. And he'll be there a lot longer. Not that he's going to have a bad time at that other school, but the hope was that he would be in a brand new school. So I think we need to set our expectations correctly. I don't see this going away quickly. I recall Petco Park was held up for 4 years by two people, or a small group anyway. Let's keep our eyes open and our fingers crossed, but a level head and realize what we're in for. But you've done a great job at shepherding us through what we have been going through, and we thank you for it.
Thank you, Doug. And I think that to your point, we are always thinking about what is the worst case scenario, what are the steps that we can take, what are the best case scenario, and trying to have options in front of us so that we can be prepared and proactively prepared. And so I think that that's where a number of the questions that come up, it may not give us as much clarity. We will know more after that hearing on November 18th. And I think as we get closer to finishing the coastal development permit, we know more with that. And those solidify a little bit of our ability to plan for, especially next school year. And then in addition, doing that capital improvement planning and looking out years, we'll make sure that we're prepared to look at the projects across the district as well, knowing that there's going to be impact.
Just don't be Pollyanna about that hearing, because I don't think that's going to be the end of anything.
Well, what's incredibly frustrating is that the only people who will admit to being part of this lawsuit are neighbors who have expressly said their concern is their views. And we're part of the process and still have their views, but we'll have to look over, some roofs to look at the exact same view. So it's frustrating that a few people could cause this kind of impact for all the kids at Delmar Heights, and now we're seeing the impact for our kids at Delmar Hills and Carmel Del Mar and the ripple effect at Ocean Air and across the whole district. So it's just an incredibly frustrating situation.
Selfish too.
Yes. Chris, thank you for your diligent work to move this forward against all odds here, and for your updates. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
I believe you're with us for 9.2, board approval, creation of a temporary ad hoc advisory committee for the limited purpose of reviewing the status of various districts' facilities projects for fiscal year 2021. And the appointment of 2 members of the governing board of trustees to the temporary ad hoc advisory committee. Can you tell us about that?
I'd be happy to. So with the number of facilities projects we have going on and how they've become fairly complex and the number of consultants we need to use with these big projects, we felt that it would be important to have an opportunity where we could have a small number of board members who could have some meetings, be able to be involved in some of those conversations and be able to report back to the board. And this would allow 2 board members to be a part of this ad hoc committee. Again, it's not a sort of never-ending committee. It would be for this fiscal year and would allow us to set some of these meetings and provide some more in-depth detail that the board members on the committee could then bring back to the full board.
Are there any questions about how this committee works? Okay. Yes, Catherine.
Yes, I don't know if we've had a committee yet that I've been. So I'm curious how that's formed and how it works. Yes.
So we would form it with board action tonight, and if the board identifies 2 members, we would then work with through the superintendent's office to schedule meetings based on need related to the facilities projects that we have.
And Chris, all the decisions still come back to the full board. It's just those two board members have perhaps some more visibility that then they can just share for the benefit of the full board as we continue to move through this process.
It's absolutely right. It's not a decision-making body, and that's why it's intentionally less than a quorum of the board. And so the two members would be able to then bring back information, though, and the hope being that it provides a little bit more first-person information that board members could then bring back to the full board.
Okay, so we need 2 members for the committee and an alternate. So I'm happy to participate. Who else is interested in participating?
I'll do it.
I'm happy to be an alternate.
Okay, I see G1 raising his hand also as an alternate.
I'll do whatever. Yeah, alternate, whatever. It's fine. Anything.
Okay. Can we have 2 alternates?
Sure.
Okay, so let's do that. Is there a proposal to, or a motion to form the committee as we discussed?
So moved.
Second.
Is it? Okay, so all those in favor of forming this ad hoc temporary committee, we will go through the list with Member Wooden.
Aye.
Okay, Member Mock.
Aye.
Member Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Member Raffner.
Aye.
And aye for me. So the motion to approve the ad hoc committee has passed. That brings us to item 12.1, which is board review, reminder of upcoming events, which is in the agenda, and also 12.2, board review, reminder of upcoming DMSEF and PTA events. And I will note that this list is slowly increasing with some drive-through events at different schools. So I applaud the PTAs and the DMSEF for trying to, work with the teachers and the staff to find ways to keep people connected, even though we can't meet together as we normally would. And that brings us to item 12.3, preliminary. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry for 12.3. Go ahead. You can say the rest of it, Erica. I just want to jump in there before you cut off.
For 12.3?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. 12.3, preliminary items for the September 2020 regular board meeting.
Yeah, sorry, Eric. I didn't mean to hop on you. I just didn't want, because we usually go through it pretty quick. I was just kind of curious, is there a way for it to talk about the ECDC stuff? I don't know if it's the best format for maybe the board meetings, because particularly since last meeting we already made our resolution, which is kind of fix the staffing issue. But I was wondering if there's a way that the public can have some sort of feedback to the district, whether like a town hall or something like that. I don't know if there's some sort of formal thing that they might be able to be done for that.
Oh, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I can follow up with the board president on, what that could look like. I will tell you that we are planning to have some opportunities to communicate with those families so they have a better idea of what it is going to look like. And I've been having some personal conversations, as has Shelley Peterson, with each of those parents. So that's been nice to be able to hear what their thoughts and concerns are. So we can report back one way or another, either through my superintendent's report or what have you, as well as so that way we can tell you what's happened between now and the next month in order to communicate and hear from those families.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Because I think a lot of people just want to be able to have some format to be able to communicate with the district. So it's because we keep getting emails about it, and I don't know if there's some way that you can make that connection with them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, UI, yes, and we'll follow up on that. Okay, so that brings us to 12.4, adjournment of the meeting. So we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We'll call vote. Member Wooden.
Aye.
Member Mock.
Aye.
Member Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Member Raffner.
Aye.
An aye for me. The meeting is adjourned at 8:41 p.m. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.